Prepare to experience the strongest radio allowable by law. Secrets will be revealed. Myths dispelled. From the studio gym where excuses never apply, it's Superhuman Radio with your host, Carl Lanore.
Welcome back to another episode of Superhuman Radio. Today is January 13th, 2021. I'm going to cover two topics on today's show. During the first hour, we're going to be joined by Dr. Bill Harris to talk about omega-3 status and heart rate recovery. Very, very interesting. And so that's during the first hour. During the second hour, I'm going to spend a little time picking at a pet peeve of mine. And it's about what doctors really don't understand about thyroid hormone. I get frequent contacts from people in the audience pursuing answers. And when I hear why they're on thyroid hormone and how it makes them feel, it baffles me why doctors don't understand what thyroid hormone actually does in the body. So that's later in the show. Before we do any of that, we have to thank our title sponsor, and that's Legendary Foods, makers of the Tasty Pastry. The new Tasty Pastry, the birthday cake style, is out of this world. Go to shrnetwork.biz/legendary. 0 sugar and 20 grams of high-quality protein. The crust is flaky. It's not like the original Tasty Pastries were made to emulate a Pop-Tart, but this one is more like an apple turnover in the fluffiness of the crust. It's baffling that there's no wheat in this product. It really is. Go to shrnetwork.biz/legendary. Use the coupon code SHR10 and save 10% off. Now to bring my guest on, Dr. William Harris. Welcome to the show. How are you?
I'm well. Great to be here.
Thanks for being here. So you recently published a paper that looked at the effects of omega-3 status on the ability for the heart to recover its beat, if you will, when it starts to beat too rapidly. Why? What pointed you in this direction that called for this research?
Well, we know that the omega-3s, of course, have a lot of effects around the body. We're trying to kind of nail down individual specific effects. We know they lower, for example, when you take omega-3, they lower the blood triglyceride levels. They can lower blood pressure. They have anti-inflammatory effects. But there is also effects directly on the heart. And we've seen this many years ago when we actually studied post-transplant patients. And for this particular question, we were working with a group at the Cooper Clinic in Dallas, Texas, where they are, Kenneth Cooper, of course, was the Air Force doctor back in the early 70s, maybe even 60s, that sort of started the whole aerobics movement. And he founded a clinic down there, and it's sort of an executive health type clinic in a way. But they have thousands of people come for visits, and they all do exercise stress tests, and they all get omega-3 index tests, blood omega-3 levels tested. So we, in talking with their research group, we decided it would be interesting to see if there's a relationship between how high the omega-3 level is in the blood and how quickly their heart returned to normal after exercises, because that's a sign of a healthier heart.
Right. And I remember in the early days, I'm talking 15 years ago, on a lot of the bodybuilding forums, that some of the bodybuilders used to complain that when they took too much fish oil, they noticed rhythm changes in the heart. I think what would be considered, what is it called when your heart goes too slow? There's a name for it.
Bradycardia.
Bradycardia. And so this was kind of anecdotally discovered probably 15 years ago.
Really?
I remember posts where people were asking, does this happen to you? Do you think there are some people who are more sensitive to the effects of omega-3s on heart rhythm changes?
I'm sure there are. I mean, people are so different. It's something I've never heard before. It's very interesting that came across your radar that long ago. So it's certainly possible that there could be a specific response to a certain level of omega-3.
So we know that there's a sinus, a node in the heart, where all of the electrical impulses that drive the heart to contract and expand originate from.
Right.
In fact, when people have anomalies in heart rhythm issues, a lot of times they'll go for an ablation where they'll actually zap this area of the heart and purposefully destroy some of these neurons to stop the rapid impulses. What role does omega-3 exert its effects on that portion of the heart, do you think?
The omega-3 exerts its effects in membranes and how the electrical stability of membranes in general. So it would not have to necessarily be the pacemaker. You're talking about the sinus node called the pacemaker, right? It could be. That's not been directly studied, and it's a great question that somebody really ought to dig in directly and look at the activity of that node in the heart. But some of the stuff you're talking about, ablation, typically, in my understanding, relates to when they have atrial fibrillation.
Yes.
Right. And then there are circuits that have developed in the heart that just send electricity all over the place, and they originate in certain nodes, not usually the sinus node, but in different nodes, different abnormal places. And those are the things they burn up and try to stop those aberrant electrical signals.
So if omega-3s are acting on the membrane, what I hear when you say that is they're kind of they affect the ability for the electrical charge to be transmitted over an area, over a surface. Is that an accurate assumption?
I think that's fair. The details are there, but I mean that's the general idea. Yeah.
So wouldn't a first line with your research coming forth now, wouldn't a first line approach to someone who does have, let's say, AFib or even PVCs, right? Preventricular contractions, which is another rhythm anomaly that the population suffers from. Wouldn't an omega-3 test and then perhaps supplementation with omega-3s be the first line of treatment to see if we can normalize what's going wrong with the transmission of the electrical charge across the heart?
But yeah, I mean, that's very logical, and it's been studied quite a bit. In fact, they've done several studies to try to taking people who have atrial fibrillation, for example, and giving them omega-3 or a placebo, and then following them over time. And by and large, it doesn't work. It doesn't really change AFib. And nobody quite understands why. I mean, the other kind of fibrillation that's much more dangerous than AFib is called ventricular fibrillation,
right?
VFib, and that'll kill you,
right?
But AFib doesn't kill you; it's just annoying, and it can increase risk for stroke and things like that. So there's been a tremendous interest in omega-3 in that area, but when it's been studied, it hasn't shown to reduce it. It's not the silver bullet, I guess. You have to accept.
I have a theory on AFib in the population. So AFib occurs most often in people who are already insulin resistant. We know this. Okay. So people who are insulin resistant generally have compromised glucose metabolism, and as a result, they develop something called advanced glycation end products.
Yeah, yeah.
And we can actually see AGEs on the skin. If you ever see somebody who has just tons and tons of brown, that we call them beauty marks, these brown marks, age spots, liver spots on the outside of the arm or skin. Well, your body gets those on the inside too when you are diabetic and you have AGEs. And I used to work on PC boards when you still soldered things. And I remember if you were working on a PC board and you splashed some solder and it bridged a couple lands and runs, you'd short out a circuit.
Oh,
and I would be interested to find out if the people who have AFib actually have electrical shorts in their heart because of the AGEs forming on the nerves of the heart and distorting that impulse.
yeah. I mean, that's an interesting hypothesis. That would be testable. Probably have to do heart biopsies.
Yeah,
a little tough.
Yeah.
But
if you have someone who's passed away already and you know that they had AFib and you can actually take a look at their heart, you could find this out.
Right. An autopsy study could do it.
So going back to your study, so
Sure.
Explain how the study was designed.
The study it's what they call an observational study. So we didn't give omega-3 supplements to anybody. We didn't take them away from anybody. We just measured the omega-3 level in the blood. We call the omega-3 index, which is the red blood cell EPA DHA levels, which is a really good marker of tissue omega-3 status in general. So we measure that, and that's just measured routinely at the Cooper Clinic. Everybody gets it. They're measured here in our lab at Omega Quant in South Dakota. And so they just collect this data. And at the same time, they're collecting all kinds of other data on how people perform on their exercise treadmill test. This is just a standard medical evaluation.
Yeah.
So after 10 years of collecting data like this, we thought, well, why don't we go back and look and see if there was a relationship between this particular metric, the heart rate recovery, which we hypothesized would be better if omega-3 levels were higher, that there would be a more rapid drop in heart rate after exercise. And so that was our hypothesis. We had some suggested from other studies that it might work, but we didn't know. I mean, that's what happens in research. You never really know. And we looked and we found that, yes, indeed, that was the case. Interestingly, more obvious in women than men for some reason. But nevertheless, in both together, we found a higher omega-3 index associated with a quicker return toward a normal baseline heart rate.
So we're getting some questions lining up here, and I'm just glancing at them real quick. So, just let me make this one change here. Okay, so, and I want to talk about Omega Quant because I think that this is a fascinating discussion, and it's also something you can measure in the comfort of your own home in just a moment. But what were the indices of levels? Like, what were the low and what were the high, and where did you start to see better recovery in the heart after exercise?
So typical omega-3 levels, say in the U.S. population in general, are in the neighborhood of what we call 4 to 5%. And percent, what do we mean by percent? We measure the omega-3 EPA and DHA content in the red blood cell membrane. So there are lots of fatty acids that compose a membrane, all membrane. We measure all of them, and then we say, well, what percent of the total is EPA and DHA? So that's what we get. And so a 4 or 5% omega-3 index means 4 to 5% of the fatty acids in the red cell are EPA and DHA. We think that the optimal level is about 8% over EPA plus DHA in red cells. In the Cooper group, really the higher they got, I think the average or the highest we saw was something in the 9 or 10% area. And they were the ones that had, I mean, actually, it's just a steep gradient. The higher the omega-3 index was, the better the heart rate recovery. So there really wasn't a tipping point, so to speak.
So
I'm sure there would be in time.
There are more and more today. Fish oil supplements are one of the, if not the largest category of vitamin supplements sold today in America.
Yeah.
Like $2 billion a year people spend on fish oil.
A lot of money, right?
And so everyone's trying to invent a better mousetrap. Companies, good companies like Metagenics, for instance, they focus on specific fractions of the EPA, DHA. In fact, they even have a product called SPM Actives, which is the pro-resolvin mediators. Not sponsors of the show. I use this product.
Okay.
That I think it's a concentrated, refined form of DHA. I could be wrong, but my question is, do we know if EPA or DHA is more valuable in this discussion?
We don't. I don't think we know that. I think my usual response to the question of which one's better is that in nature, and Mother Nature has given us these fatty acids in fish, and they're always together.
Right.
And they produce, as you were talking about, these specialized pro-resolving mediators. Both EPA and DHA make a whole suite of these important molecules. So I don't think we're at the point yet where we can say, for this disease, that one, for that disease, this one. I think both of them have to be there.
And from an evolutionary perspective, we evolved under the influence of both. So this idea that, you just need this one is actually contrary to evolutionary medicine.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, I agree with that.
Okay. Are there any antagonistic fatty acids? We've done shows over the years. There was a ex-military guy who came on my show, Dr. Joseph. I can't think of his name now.
Hiblin.
Who?
Joe Hiblin?
Yes. He's on my show. He's on my show a couple times. He's with the university out in the Northeast somewhere, correct?
Well, he was with the NIH. He was in the Public Health Service.
Okay.
And he was with the NIH in a research arm in the Division of Alcohol Abuse and Alcohol. He was a psychiatrist.
Okay. And he came on my show a couple times and talked about different fatty acids.
Yeah.
But he was most interested in the ones that were pro-inflammatory. I think omega-9s and omega-6s. Do we know that the beneficial effects of omega-3s, are they challenged by the American diet, which is much higher in omega-6s and omega-9s, which tend to be pro-inflammatory?
Yeah, that's we got how much left? We got 23 minutes.
We have a better part of almost an hour. So let's go.
That's a compliment. First of all, the omega-9s really are not pro-inflammatory.
Okay.
So we can get rid of them.
Okay.
We can make those fatty acids ourselves just from eating carbohydrates even. But they're common in fats. It's the omega-6s that are controversial. And there's some evidence that particularly arachidonic acid, which is the omega-6 that's kind of like EPA and DHA. It's the cousin of EPA, one double bond difference in the molecule. But that can be pro-inflammatory. But there's, I think, a fair amount of evidence that some of the omega-6 fatty acids are actually good for you. We've been part of a couple big studies where we've looked at blood levels, like the assay we do at OmegaQuant. We measure omega-6 levels in red blood cells like we measure omega-3. And we found that the highest people that have the highest levels of the omega-6s, particularly linoleic acid, which is the one that's in foods. It's the one that's in vegetable oils. It's the essential fatty acid in the omega-6 family. People who have higher levels of that omega-6, actually, if you follow them out for 10, 20 years, they have lower risk of having a heart attack and they have a lower risk of developing diabetes compared to people who have a low level of linoleic acid. So that's kind of evidence that points to omega-6 being beneficial. There's other evidence pointing to it being not so beneficial. I think what I focus on is what everybody agrees on is that the American diet is low in EPA and DHA. And that's job number one. Not so much to worry about the omega-6 side as to worry about fixing the omega-3 side.
And we come back to evolution, right? So things that have omega-3s typically also have omega-6s and other omega acids. So,
Right. Exactly.
So at Omega Quant, you actually measure people's omega-3 statuses.
Yeah.
What percentage of people who get tested tend to be in the higher 8 and 9% range versus the much lower ranges?
Yeah. When we do kind of population surveys, and not just the people that want to pay for an omega-3
Yeah,
test.
because they're interested in having high levels. That's why they're paying you. Right.
Amen. You got it. So when we look at populations, we find that less than about 3 or 4%, well, only 3 or 4% of people have an omega-3 index over 8%, which is what we think is a good target. So it's very uncommon in the United States to have a high omega-3 up in the healthy zone. Now in Japan, 50% of people have omega-3 levels like that. At least the older people that are still not eating American diets, still eating the traditional Japanese diet. So it's doable. You can do it with food, but you have to eat quite a bit of fish to do it. Of course, the Japanese do.
And I really think of eating fish is the way to get it. I burp all the time when I take fish oil products, no matter what. I don't know if it's because it's not enough fat to trigger the whole lymphatic, system and the digestion of fat, so it just stays in your stomach, or if it really is impurities in it or what. But when I eat salmon, I never burp fish oil up. So I keep going to eating fish, which leads me to my next question. If someone comes to your, and I'm gonna put this up real quick. Hold on. So there's two websites we're talking about today: the Fatty Acid Research Organization, which is FARESINST.com, and Omega Quant, which my good friend Ron Penna sends Omega Quant tests to everyone he cares about, because he's so adamant that people maintain high omega-3 levels. Is, as it sounds like, Omega Quant, OMEGAQUANT.com. So if someone sends you their initial test, their baseline test, let's say I'm a 3.
Yeah. Okay.
Is there a guide for supplementation, and is it better just to eat a piece of salmon every single day? How can I get to that higher level of, let's say, 9% the fastest?
Yeah, we have on our website a calculator that can, if you put in your current level, your baseline omega-3, like you were saying, and then it will tell you roughly how much EPA and DHA you need to eat based on our research to get up to around at least 8%. And that'll be like over 3 or 4 months. It takes a while to get your tissue levels up, but that gives you a target level. And the typical level, that amount that people need, is roughly 1.5 grams a day of EPA and DHA.
That's nothing.
It's not bad. And
no,
just
nothing.
Sticking with it, that's the trick. So on average, that's what it takes. And that's if you're using a triglyceride form of fish oil.
That was my next question.
Go for it.
So my next question is, we've seen lots of articles, and actually on my blog, Alex Leaf wrote 2 really good articles about omega-3s probably about 5 years ago.
Yeah. Wow.
And the first one was the triglyceride-bound omega-3s are the only ones that count, that the plant omega-3s that originate in plants don't seem to take, for lack of better words. Is that true?
Generally true, right. The ones that come from plants is called alpha-linolenic acid. It's an omega-3 family, but it's not, it's one of the poor cousins. It has to be converted up into EPA and DHA, the long chain, the marine, the fish oil types. It has to be synthesized in the body up to those, and that's a very slow process. So the best way to get EPA and DHA is to actually take them directly.
I want to put these. So I think Jeff Clifton had two questions, and I think we've answered one of them. What is the optimal amount of omega-3s post-workout? It's not post-workout. You have to accumulate omega-3s over time.
Yes, right.
In order for them to be incorporated body-wide. But as you heard, if you get into the 8th percentile, you're probably in a good place.
Yes.
And then he asked, I thought the main concern about omega-6s was peroxidation. I think the main concern of all fats and fatty acids is oxidation and peroxidation. Am I wrong about that?
Concern meaning, of course, omega-3s can be, again, peroxidation is a bad process. Oxidation is a normal energy releasing process. So the terms can be a little confusing. It's a matter of how well stabilized they are, how much antioxidant they have in products. And so the omega-3s, when they're in capsule form, they're really quite well protected from oxygen. It's oxygen that we're concerned about. And when you can get rancid vegetable oils, certainly, and that's a problem with peroxidation in a vegetable oil. That's omega-6. But the question about what's the problem with omega-6, is it peroxidation or is it the omega-6 is being converted into pro-inflammatory other molecules? That's a long, complicated discussion with a lot of different data. I think, again, I try not to worry too much about the omega-6s because I think I don't want to distract people from the primary mission, which is to get EPA and DHA levels up.
Okay.
Let's get there first.
I want to take our first commercial break. When we come back, I've got lots more questions. Feel free to post your questions if you're watching live. You can post them on Facebook or YouTube, and we'll work them into the show. We're talking with Dr. William Harris. We're promoting two websites for him today. The first is a research arm, a fatty acid research organization, FARESINST.com. But the really fascinating one, in my opinion, is Omega Quant, where you can, I've actually done this. In the comfort of your own home, it comes with a little preloaded Lancet pop. You do a little prick. You drop a few drops of blood on a Wattman blotter. It looks like a big book of matches. You fold it up, put it in an envelope, mail it back. And you can know what your omega-3 status is. And then, because if you don't measure it, you can't manage it. If you just shoot, I'm just going to take a bunch, because I want to talk about, there are negative effects of too much omega-3s. Rob Wolf discovered this because when Rob Wolf first started doing his whole paleo thing, he was telling people to take 10 and 15 grams of fish oil a day because if some is good, more is better. And he himself discovered that it was a bad idea. So you have to measure it first. The days of willy-nilly supplementation, that's for the people who are neophytes. Oh, I read this article, I'm going to take this. Oh, I read this article. You don't take something you don't need. That's really the truth. And you only take what you need. And the only way to do that is for testing. Stay tuned. We'll be right back with more Superhuman Radio. By now, you're aware of the cognitive benefits of nootropics. My friends over at Pure Nootropics are giving my listeners 10 to 30% off their already great prices on over 70 high-quality nootropics. Stock up on DHM so you can feel good after your holiday celebration, or try the Superhuman Stack to boost your brain and energize your day. Go to shrnetwork.biz/pure, that's PURE, and start saving today. TaylorMade Health is focused on making sure you're able to perform and look your best. They are a leader in game-changing supplements and cosmetic products. Whether you want to increase strength, expedite recovery, facilitate soft tissue repair, or reduce deep wrinkles, TaylorMade Health has you covered. TaylorMade Health is also the home to Dr. Seed's products such as BPC, BPC Plus, and the Chill Pill. All of my listeners can now get 20% off their first order with code TRY20. That's TRY20. This code can even be used on subscription orders. Visit shrnetwork.biz/try20 today and use code TRY20 for 20% off your first order. Are you ready to change the way you age? Of course you are. That's why you're here. Juvicel is a new first-of-its-kind dietary supplement that includes 10 key research-backed ingredients shown in studies to support lifespan. Things like resveratrol, fisetin, quercetin, pterostilbene, sulforaphane, turmeric, all in a single dose. You may have some of these ingredients already, but Juvicel is the first to combine them all into a single product to support your lifespan. It's vegan, non-GMO, and sustainable. Live better longer with Juvicel. Go to shrnetwork.biz/live better. Use code SHR and save 20% off today. Getting a massage post-workout is a proven strategy to facilitate better recovery. Getting to massage therapists can be difficult and expensive, especially in these times. The solution is the Meteor, a heated massage ball from Milestorm. Reduce pain and soreness and expedite recovery with the Meteor's research-backed vibration settings and therapeutic heat. It's convenient for travel and works on any body part. Go to shrnetwork.biz/Meteor and use code SHR15 for 15% off and free shipping if you buy 2 or more. Start recovering better today. Whether your goal is to build muscle or burn fat, you'll find everything you need at Redcon One. Need help getting a good night's sleep? Try Fade Out, or the most popular pre-workout supplement on the market today, Total War. Sign up for their new Transformation Challenge and win $10,000, or shop for apparel that people at the gym will know that you are serious about your training. Need a testosterone booster that works? Check out Boomstick. Whatever you need, you'll find the best quality supplements on the market at Redcon One. Go to redcon1.com. That's REDCON, the number 1.com, or go to superhumanradio.net and click the Redcon One banner ad today.
This is the Superhuman Channel, where we use oxygen for the power of good.
Welcome back. So one of the articles that Alex Leaf wrote for the Superhuman Radio blog 5 years ago was that irregular consumption of omega-3s is better than taking a daily dose of, let's say, 3 grams a day ad infinitum. Because the reason is that when the body sees the same amount of omega-3s day in and day out, it starts to use more and more of it as an energy substrate, as opposed to storing it in tissue. But when you have a bolus, so 2 or 3 times a week, the unpredictability of the dose and the availability triggers a phenomenon that I like to call the phenomenon of abundance and scarcity in the body. When the body thinks something is scarce, it uses it for the critical needs as opposed to for willy-nilly. And so Alex said, and this makes sense from an evolutionary perspective, right? We ate fish. We probably didn't eat fish every single day. When we did eat fish, like most hunter-gatherers, when we found something, we ate it until it was gone. And once it was gone, we went on and foraged for something else. And the body recognizes this phenomenon. And if you get the same dose of omega-3s day in and day out, less of it is incorporated into tissue, more is used as an energy substrate. But when you get it in a more irregular pattern, more of it is incorporated into tissue. Are you familiar with this phenomenon at all?
Not really. I know that you certainly don't have to take omega-3 every day. You could take it a full dose for a week in one day. That will work just as well. But I've not seen that particular piece of research. That's an interesting observation. And Alex, he was a real pioneer, so I think he knows what he's talking about.
Yeah, it's fat, so the interesting thing about this phenomenon is I've seen this phenomenon more than once in physiology. Mm-hmm. There was a study in idiopathic short stature in children where they gave a total dose of 25 IUs of growth hormone a week. One group got a standard dose every day, 7 days a week. Another group got a haphazard dosing schedule where they would take maybe like 6 IUs one day and skip a day or two. And then they looked at the trajectory of growth over some period of time. I think it was like a year and a half. And even though both groups got a net 25 IUs a week, the group that got the irregular dosing had a much greater growth trajectory.
Wow, interesting.
Well, and from an evolutionary perspective, this makes perfect sense. You know, our body didn't pulse growth hormone exactly this amount day in and day out. Impaired sleep, a couple bad nights of sleep, low pulses. Good night's sleep, high pulses. Depending on the diet, low pulses. Depending on the diet, high pulse. So this idea that we do things in the pharmacological nature where, just take this dose every single day, I don't think it's appropriate for the human condition. And that is kind of what Alex's article that's on my website showed, that if you take irregular doses in an irregular pattern of fish oil, you'll have more incorporated into tissue and less of it used and burned up as energy.
That's cool. So that's on your site. I want to look that up. That's great.
I'll send you the link. So, it's 5 years ago. You'd have to dig for it for days and days. I'll send you the link along with Ron Penna's email address. I promise.
Oh, yeah, great.
So Dr. George Touliatos, who is a noted physician from Greece, he's been on the show a few times. He says, can DHA, EPA, he's more interested in muscle gain.
Okay.
Can DHA, EPA suppress prostaglandins and muscle inflammation after training? In other words, in case we have wild salmon as post-workout meal, is it a bad idea?
No, it's not a bad idea. It's just that the omega-3s have been shown to improve recovery post-workout. They may not improve performance. That's been tougher to show, but they do improve the rate at which you recover. So which obviously is a good thing too. You can train more. But the omega-3s are like fat-soluble vitamins, like vitamin E, vitamin D. You take them and they distribute throughout the fat of your body. They don't spike in the blood like vitamin C might do, or a water-soluble vitamin. So taking them at a specific time may not be that important. It's really more taken chronically, or like you say, sporadically in varying doses. But it's almost, you can't think of it as a drug, that it's going to have an immediate effect on process X, whatever it is.
So let's address for the audience, in case they haven't heard this discussed before, because we have, how omega-3s are different than, say, NSAIDs. And I'll lead into this. As we talked earlier, that omega-3s have specific pro-resolving mediators. And what that means is they speed up the healing process, as opposed to an NSAID, which stalls the healing process and makes the pain go away. Is that an accurate illustration of how they work?
Well, I would say in a way that they do both. One thing the NSAIDs don't do is they don't accelerate resolution of inflammation. The omega-3s do. But the omega-3s can also blunt the initial inflammatory response too. So you get it on both sides with the omega-3s.
So they can influence a reduction in pain and have an analgesic effect, but it's not because they're stalling or shutting off the healing process. They're actually speeding the healing process along. So you, as you said, you recover faster. I know a lot of people who believe in taking high doses of omega-3s because it will help them build muscle more efficiently because they're recovering faster.
Yeah, that makes sense. That makes sense.
So is there too much omega-3? We're Americans. If some is good, more is better.
Yeah. It's hard to say. I mean, I don't think there's any good evidence that you actually reach a toxicity level like you might with too much vitamin A, too much vitamin D. You can reach some serious problems with those. But omega-3 hasn't shown up like that. I think what we often say is the omega-3 index, we think the target ought to be between 8 and 12%, somewhere in that area. That's well within human. Japanese are in that area. We have very little evidence or data at all about the effects of having an omega-3 index of 15 or 20. We don't even know what that does. we don't know that it's good. We don't know that it's bad. We just don't know.
Can't we look at the Inuit for that information? The Inuit.
Well, that's a complicated story there, because there's a whole lot of things different about Inuit life than just the omega-3s.
Right.
I mean, that's why it's hard to. People have complained about the Inuit story not being really true. They're saying Dr. Dyerberg and Dr. Bang, who discovered the thing, they've gone back and looked. Oh no, that wasn't true. Well, I don't believe that. And even if it wasn't true, they've spawned a field of research that has been the most rich and productive in almost all of nutrition history. So we know from thousands of studies now that omega-3s are beneficial.
Everything that thins the blood, let me rephrase that. Everything that is anti-inflammatory seems to thin the blood. Have you seen that correlation? I've noticed it.
Yeah, well, there's certainly an effect of omega-3 on thinning the blood. That's been known for a long time. Question is, how does it thin it too much? Does it make the blood less too unable to clot so that you bleed excessively? And that really hasn't shown up. That's been the danger that people are worried about if you're taking Coumadin, or if you're on aspirin or something, or Eliquis or something. Should you not take omega-3? Well, it hasn't shown that there's any what they call clinically significant bleeding. There might be a little bit of extra bleeding when you're shaving or something, but that's not clinically significant. Americans' blood clots too fast.
Right.
In general.
Right.
So if it clots a little less fast, that's more toward where it ought to be. And that's where omega-3s, I think, do help, but they don't hurt in that regard.
Do they thin the blood the same way as some of these pharmaceutical drugs? So in other words, Eliquis and these types of drugs are designed with people who have a high thrombotic index. Maybe they have a propensity to clotting, or people who tend to have untreated obstructive sleep apnea. They have a high D-dimer rate, and so thinning the blood is critical to kind of rescue them from the potential of a blood clot or a stroke. Does fish oil work in the same way? And if so, why aren't doctors prescribing fish oil instead of these? Coumadin was rat poison before we made it into a pill for humans.
Yeah, I know. Right. Yes and no. Omega-3s operate pretty much the same way aspirin does, because it blocks prostaglandin synthesis. The omegas will actually reduce the production of omega-6 based prostaglandins, and that's what aspirin does. The omega-3s do not operate at all like Coumadin, though. That's affecting an entirely different arm of the blood clotting system. The omega-3s really affect the platelet component of blood clotting, not the different cascades of prothrombin, factor 10, factor 9, factor 8, all that stuff. Omega-3s don't seem to play any role in that arm of the bleeding cascade.
And Dr. Tuliatos just put up, he said they inhibit prostaglandins, so they inhibit platelet aggregation, but they don't inhibit platelet biosynthesis or number. They just keep them from being make them less sticky.
Make them less sticky, right?
And that has to be a good thing. It has to be.
It's a good thing.
I did a show 8 years ago about there are now some labs that are testing for blood viscosity. Mm-hmm. Because pumping liquid and pumping mud have different effects on the cardiovascular system.
Yeah, good image.
And so, it should be a good thing to make blood more viscous and slippery and able to travel into small blood vessels that are so microscopic that thick blood doesn't want to go in there.
Right.
We have a host of research coming out now that neuropathy isn't just for diabetics. We always thought diabetic neuropathy was a thing, and now we have people that don't have any insulin resistant evidence of insulin resistance or high blood sugar, and they're developing neuropathies. And now the new class of thinking is, well, the blood vessels that feed these small nerve fibers aren't feeding the nerve fibers, so the nerves are dying. Well, one of those could very well be that your blood is too thick and it won't fit in there anymore.
Yeah, right. And part of the thickness of the blood is the red blood cell. and how fluid or flexible is the red blood cell, because they have to squeeze through a capillary. The capillary is actually smaller diameter than a red blood cell is. So the red cell's got to actually change shape to get through that capillary and dump off the oxygen, pick up CO2. So your point's well taken.
What about the rouleau effect? Is there any evidence that that omega-3 has any kind of modulating ability on the rouleau effect? We know that when these red blood cells stack, they carry less oxygen, they're bigger, they clump. What about that?
Yeah, I don't think that's been studied. That's another good question that ought to be studied. We've studied at one time the flexibility of the membrane, red cell membrane, but that's a different thing than red cells sticking together.
Right.
And whether the extent to which omega-3 could be helpful in that condition, it would not be hard to study, but I don't think it's been done. Ron Penna used to have these think tanks at Quest, and I was fortunate to be invited to them. And one of them, we were looking at whether or not grounding was a thing. And they had grounding, like grounding yourself to the earth. Oh, electrically, you mean?
Well, yeah. So there's a movement out there where people are sleeping on sheets that will go to some grounding point in their home. So they're sleeping on a grounded mat throughout the day. They also have grounding wrist straps that you can wear at work that use the grounded side of an electrical outlet, but you have to test it first to make sure that there's no overflow AC coming back through it. And so they had a dark field microscope, and one of the girls who worked there sits at a desk all day, and they took her blood and we looked at it through the microscope, and you could see the phenomenon of rouleau. You could see like 6 or 7 red blood cells, like casino chips stacked on top of each other.
Yeah.
And then they put a grounding mat underneath her desk. She took her shoes and socks off, and she sat with her feet on the grounding mat for about a half an hour, and they took her blood again. It was miraculous. There wasn't a single red blood cell stacked on top of another one. So the grounding really does do something. What? We don't know, but from a blood standpoint, it completely reverses the rouleau effect. And the only thing we can think of is, we know that tissue has charges, has a charge.
Yeah.
Okay, and blood cells have a charge. And just like when you were a kid, you had magnets and they wouldn't stick this way, but they would stick this way. We just assumed that the discharge of her body when grounded allowed those red blood cells to separate.
My gosh. That's interesting. That's interesting. I've never heard that. Never heard about grounding.
So everybody, we're going to change topics here in just a moment when we come back from this break. I just want to put these websites up one more time. If you want to learn about what the fatty acid research organization is doing, go to FARESINST.com. If you want to take control of your own omega-3 levels, you first have to get an omega quant test done one time, and then start eating more fish and supplementing for a few months, and then have it done again. The website for that is OmegaQuant, OmegaQuant.com. That's the place to go for that. Okay, we're going to change the topic a little bit because the good doctor has recently published a new article about the effects of omega-3 and COVID-19. So this will be fascinating. Stay tuned. We'll be right back with more Superhuman Radio. TaylorMade Health is focused on making sure you're able to perform and look your best. They are a leader in game-changing supplements and cosmetic products. Whether you want to increase strength, expedite recovery, facilitate soft tissue repair, or reduce deep wrinkles, TaylorMade Health has you covered. TaylorMade Health is also the home to Dr. Seed's products such as BPC, BPC Plus, and the Chill Pill. All of my listeners can now get 20% off their first order with code TRY20. That's TRY20. This code can even be used on subscription orders. Visit shrnetwork.biz/try20 today and use code TRY20 for 20% off your first order. Hippocrates, the father of modern medicine, said that all disease begins in your gut. That's why it's so important to protect yourself with boosted immune system. If you drink coffee, tea, smoothies, or really any beverage in the morning, and you're looking for a tasty way to start your day and defend yourself against harmful bacteria, then I have just the thing for you to try. It's called the Ultimate Immunity Protection Stack, and it was put together by my friends over at Bioptimizers. Their immunity stack has 3 products which contain over 18 natural herbs and probiotic blends formulated to fight and eliminate bad bacteria like E. coli, salmonella, gram-positive and gram-negative bacteria, and repair compromised gut lining. It also includes psychobiotics, which help increase serotonin and happy chemicals to naturally elevate your mood, performance, and cognitive function with no side effects or dependencies. It's a great addition to your morning routine, and it tastes amazing. Just stir it into any beverage, sip, and enjoy. It's the ultimate way to boost your immune system right before the holiday season. Go to shrnetwork.biz/protect and use code SHR10 and save an extra 10% off on the. You won't find this deal or stack anywhere else. For fast shipping and the best deal, go to shrnetwork.biz/protect today.
New Mass Pro Synthogen X2 just upped its own legendary game. To distance itself even further from the rest of the pack, Synthogen X2 now has double the key active ingredients. If you've ever wondered what steroid-like recovery feels like, Synthogen X2 delivers. See why others compare it favorably to powerful bodybuilding drugs at synthogen.com. Mass Pro Synthogen. When you train with it, you'll gain with it.
Do you remember those delicious toaster pastries you had when you were a kid? You know, the rectangular sugar-filled snacks? Well, guess what? Legendary Foods has just made low-carb toaster pastry. This is the first of its kind, and honestly, these things are amazing. They have 3 to 4 net carb, less than 1 gram of sugar, and 9 grams of protein. You can eat them right out of the wrapper or lightly toast them. The only question is, which flavor, strawberry or brown sugar cinnamon? They're available at eatlegendary.com and Amazon. By now, you're aware of the cognitive benefits of nootropics. My friends over at Pure Nootropics are giving my listeners 10 to 30% off their already great prices on over 70 high-quality nootropics. Stock up on DHM so you can feel good after your holiday celebration, or try the Superhuman Stack to boost your brain and energize your day. Go to shrnetwork.biz/pure, that's PURE, and start saving today.
This is the Superhuman Channel. Evolution just got kicked up a notch.
Welcome back. We're talking with Dr. William Harris. We're talking about omega-3s. We're going to change a little bit of the subject matter here. We're still going to talk about omega-3s, but you just published a paper looking at the effects of omega-3s on COVID. Talk about that.
Yeah, it's strictly speaking, it's not the effect of omega-3 on COVID because we didn't give people omega-3. It's the relationship between omega-3 index and risk for death from COVID. That's what we studied. So this was really just a pilot study. We were just trying to get started in this field because there's nothing in the literature, no evidence that omega-3. There's plenty of theory that omega-3 could help in COVID, but there really hasn't been any published literature showing evidence for it. So we partnered with a hospital in Los Angeles, Cedars-Sinai, and they had blood samples stored in their biobank, stored from patients who had been admitted to the hospital with COVID. So we were able to get a hold of blood samples from about 100 patients, and just sort of randomly, essentially. And then we knew, how old they were, what sex they were, and we knew whether they died in the hospital or not. That's really all we knew. And so we measured the omega-3 index on all 100 samples. We then ranked the 100 patients from the highest omega-3 to the lowest omega-3, and then divided them into groups of 25 quartiles.
Right.
And among those in the top quartile, there was 1 person that died. People in the bottom 3 quartiles, the rest of it, 13 people died. When we did the statistics on that, and we found that those people who were really in the top quartile, which was really above 5.7% omega-3 index, so pretty low. But this is, just random folks coming to the hospital in LA.
Right.
So we didn't expect it to be high. But above 5.7, they were 75% less likely to die than if they were below 5.7. So that was really our primary observation. And the paper is under peer review right now. It's not been peer reviewed yet. It's been published. There are places where you can publish papers online. And so people can see the data, see how we did it. And hopefully it'll pass peer review and we'll get it in a regular journal.
But doesn't
Very
this make sense? People don't die from COVID-19 virus. They die from the immune system's overactive response of turning on inflammation that literally sets the house on fire.
Yeah.
When we look at what happens to the lungs, for instance, the lungs become less pliable and less able to, what are they called? Alveoli. They're less able to scavenge oxygen because the inflammation is so high in the lungs that the lungs become non-functioning.
The alveoli, you mean?
Yeah, thank you, alveoli.
The little sacs.
Yeah, and so we know that it's inflammation that causes thickening of the blood that leads to stroke and heart attack in COVID-19. If you have a bad heart, and all of a sudden it went from pumping water to mud, it's not going to last. And so, it makes perfect sense that something that would not just reduce inflammation, but really modulate it, right? It doesn't turn it off. It doesn't turn it up. It just it said, no, here's where normal is. Come back down to normal.
Yeah, right.
Let's resolve things. It makes perfect sense, does it not?
It makes perfect sense. So that's why we were comfortable publishing it, because it fit with all the previous data, biochemical data that you're talking about, the resolving the anti-inflammatory effects. And we've seen other studies where we just know that people with higher omega-3 are just less likely to die in a given period of time. It actually increases longevity. So this was really the first look, and now it's going to be, I think, the first paper that we really have evidence that the omega-3, it's just certainly not proof. Got to be careful. It's evidence.
Yeah, but it's a very small sample size, so you'd have to do it a larger sample size now.
Right. So we are really, honestly, we're trying to raise money now, kind of a crowdfunding thing to pay for a 500 patient sample out of the same hospital. We're hoping to do that. So
if somebody in the audience says, "Yeah, I'd like to be part of that. I'd like to help fund that study," how do they do it?
They go to that Fatty Acid Research Institute website that you put up, our research institute, and we have a link on there describing the study and allowing people to make donations to support that research project. Yeah, that one.
That website is FARESINST.com.
Yeah, Fatty Acid Research Institute.
Yeah, if you'd like to help fund a study like that and be part of scientific research, there you go.
Thank you.
Tell me about omega-3 fatty acids and apoptosis. The reason I ask this is because a big focus on longevity medicine is on senescent cells. We know senescent cells are cells that should have died, but they didn't. So they're basically zombie cells, and they increase inflammatory cytokines and chemokines and make all the cells around them sick. And since we're talking about inflammation, and is there a place for omega-3 fatty acids in this senescent cell story?
Yeah. So you're probably familiar with the factor called mTOR.
Yes.
Yeah. So omega-3s are, and if you inhibit mTOR, which is really a major a key regulating molecule in the body. If you inhibit mTOR, you really can accelerate some of this apoptosis, getting rid of the cells you don't need, cleaning house. So there's pretty good evidence from animal studies, certainly, and that explains some of why we think people with high omega-3 levels actually live longer. They simply don't wear out as fast. So
the discussion about mTOR is quite complex.
Yes, it is complex.
And I just did an interview, made it even more complex. So we know that if you shut mTOR off completely, you'll undergo muscle wasting. And while you may live to be 100, you're going to spend that time in a wheelchair.
Okay.
But more importantly, mTOR is required for formation of memories. Did you know that?
Memory? No.
So we just did a show the other day about why am I going to forget it? It's the drug. It's the old drug. It's an old anesthesia. It starts with a K.
Ketamine.
Ketamine. So ketamine has an effect on mTOR, and it's why that in the brain it stops the formation of traumatic memories, and it can inhibit memory formation entirely for that reason. And so we just learned that mTOR is required for memory production and consolidation. And so, you know, and so mTOR is so complex. You don't want to just shut it off and say, oh, I'm going to live longer, because you lose everything, your muscles, you lose your memory, you lose everything. So it has to be this yin and yang of mTOR and AMPK. So the story has to be more like this, in my humble opinion. Autophagy, AMPK, mTOR, and maybe resolvins, not anti-inflammatories specifically, but resolvins, keep those senescent cells from becoming senescent cells, not because they completely block mTOR, but they regulate a homeostatic level of mTOR, AMPK, and autophagy.
Yeah, I think you're right. I mean, it's a balancing of 100 different little, trying to keep everything in the right balance, not blocking down anything all the way. That makes a lot of sense. You know, we've also seen that higher omega-3 levels are associated with slower loss of telomere length. The shrinking of telomeres is slowed down in people who have high omega-3, which is another longevity factor. So it all fits together.
Yeah, this is fascinating stuff. Okay, I'm going to give the websites one more time. If you want to learn more about fatty acid research, go to the Fatty Acid Research Organization at FARESINST.com. If you want to test your own omega-3 levels, order an Omega Quant test at OMEGAQUANT.com. Dr. Harris, thank you so much for being here today. It's fascinating.
Thank you. Fascinating. I appreciate it. I learned a lot.
Oh, wow. Okay. Thank you.
I mean, you know, mTOR and memory.
There you go. Listen to the show. All right. Thank you. We'll have you back on again. Take care. All right. We're going to take one quick commercial break. And when we come back, I am going to discuss how doctors get thyroid hormone completely wrong. And it's fascinating to me that so many of these misunderstandings have continued within the medical community. And we're going to get to the bottom of that when we come back. Stay tuned. Whether your goal is to build muscle or burn fat, you'll find everything you need at Redcon One. Need help getting a good night's sleep? Try Fade Out, or the most popular pre-workout supplement on the market today, Total War. Sign up for their new Transformation Challenge and win $10,000, or shop for apparel that people at the gym will know that you are serious about your training. Need a testosterone booster that works? Check out Boomstick. Whatever you need, you'll find the best quality supplements on the market at Redcon One. Go to redcon1.com. That's REDCON1.com, or go to superhumanradio.net and click the Redcon One banner ad today. Do you remember those delicious toaster pastries you had when you were a kid? You know, the rectangular sugar-filled snacks? Well, guess what? Legendary Foods has just made low-carb toaster pastry. This is the first of its kind, and honestly, these things are amazing. They have 3 to 4 net carb, less than 1 gram of sugar, and 9 grams of protein. You can eat them right out of the wrapper or lightly toast them. The only question is, which flavor, strawberry or brown sugar cinnamon? They're available at eatlegendary.com and Amazon. By now, you're aware of the cognitive benefits of nootropics. My friends over at Pure Nootropics are giving my listeners 10 to 30% off their already great prices on over 70 high-quality nootropics. Stock up on DHM so you can feel good after your holiday celebration, or try the Superhuman Stack to boost your brain and energize your day. Go to shrnetwork.biz/pure, that's PURE, and start saving today.
New Mass Pro Synthogen X2 just upped its own legendary game. To distance itself even further from the rest of the pack, Synthogen X2 now has double the key active ingredients. If you've ever wondered what steroid-like recovery feels like, Synthogen X2 delivers. See why others compare it favorably to powerful bodybuilding drugs at synthogen.com. Mass Pro Synthogen. When you train with it, you'll gain with it.
Getting a massage post-workout is a proven strategy to facilitate better recovery. Getting to a massage therapist can be difficult and expensive, especially in these times. The solution is the Meteor, a heated massage ball from Milestorm. Reduce pain and soreness and expedite recovery with the Meteor's research-backed vibration settings and therapeutic heat. It's convenient for travel and works on any body part. Go to shrnetwork.biz/Meteor and use code SHR15 for 15% off and free shipping if you buy 2 or more. Start recovering better today.
This is the Superhuman Channel, where brawn and brains finally meet.
Welcome back. Over the years, I've been contacted by people who had certain symptoms. The majority of them that fall into this class are women. And they'll contact me and they'll say, I'm losing my hair. Wow, that's a horrible thing for a woman. Horrible thing for a guy, but it's really horrible for a woman. It's real hard for a woman to pull off bald and still look beautiful. I think Helen Chand, who is a listener from the UK, who has recovered from ovarian cancer, or breast cancer, I'm sorry. Was it? No, it was ovarian cancer. I'm sorry, Helen. I'm sorry if I got it wrong. But she had to shave her head, and she looked beautiful. Not a lot of women can do it. And so when a woman starts losing her hair, they start freaking out. They're like, oh, man, something's wrong. I take a shower and literally, like, there's hair in my hands. What's going on? And almost every time I've been reached out on the show by a woman asking me this, I start to ask certain questions. The first thing I ask is, do you also notice that the outer portions of your eyebrows are disappearing? And they almost always come, yes. And then I ask, have you been diagnosed with any thyroid issues? And they almost always come back and say, well, I'm on thyroid hormone. And then I ask, how long has it been since the hair has been falling out? And the thyroid, oh, well, it started happening about 2 or 3 months after I got on thyroid hormone. Okay. So stop the thyroid hormone. But my doctor said I need it. Why do you need it? It's going to give me energy and help me lose body fat, and a host of other things that doctors tell their patients why they need thyroid hormone. Thyroid hormone is very misunderstood, and it's time for someone to speak the truth. Maybe these doctors don't realize it, but we realize it. Those of us in the Superhuman Nation and those of us who are former bodybuilder types or powerlifter types, when I start to explain this, you're going to figure it out right away. You're going to, oh my God, like no one ever told me this. So thyroid hormone is a natural mitochondria uncoupler. Who in the audience remembers what that is? Raise your hand. Okay, I see some of you. Okay. Those of you who've heard of DNP, you know that if you take DNP, it helps you burn body fat. It does this by making mitochondria inefficient. So they have to work harder. It makes them, it's like if you took a horse and wanted it to pull a wagon, the horse pulled the wagon, but now you put 1,000 pounds in the wagon. It's hard for the horse to pull the wagon, right? Okay. Mitochondrial uncouplers make the mitochondria inefficient. What that does is it makes the mitochondria have to use more energy to produce the same amount of work. And it increases body temperature. Those of you who've heard about DNP and people going to the hospital and dying because they were cooked from the inside out because they took too much DNP, and putting them in a bath of ice doesn't help them. You know that mitochondrial uncouplers make you feel hot. But they also make you feel lethargic and sluggish and make you feel horrible. So thyroid hormone is a mitochondrial uncoupler. The more thyroid hormone you have, the harder it is for your mitochondria to work, to do their job. The same analogy I gave you with the DNP. Your body temperature goes up on thyroid hormone. Yeah, because your mitochondria have to work harder, so they put off more heat because they're burning 2 and 3 times more energy to do the same work that they did before. They don't give you energy. Thyroid hormone does not give you energy. In fact, if you're taking too much thyroid hormone, it will make you feel exhausted all the time and sluggish, and walking up the stairs will be hard. You'll sweat just sitting there. You won't want to do a damn thing. Taking thyroid hormone because you have low energy is a huge mistake. Now, so where does this misunderstanding come from, Carl? Well, people who take too much thyroid hormone get the jitters. They get shaky. And that's thought to be like on the caffeine spectrum. Well, you took too much caffeine, you got too much energy, so you're jittery. Thyroid hormone gives you the jitters, so it must be revving you up too much, producing too much energy. No, that's not what's happening. High thyroid hormone affects insulin sensitivity. It actually makes insulin resistors not as sensitive. So you are hypoglycemic, even though your blood sugar is normal, it can't get into tissue. And so you're experiencing hypoglycemia. I call it situational hypoglycemia because you'll take your blood and your blood sugar will be 80 and you say, how can I have hypoglycemia, doc? Well, the sugar in your blood isn't the sugar in your tissue. And so what are the symptoms of hypoglycemia? Anxiety, tremor, nervousness. In really bad cases, you pass out. So for some reason, doctors think that because patients are getting these symptoms, that somehow thyroid hormone is just jacking them up too much. And it's not. It's not. It's another reason that they feel anxious and overstimulated. It's not that the thyroid hormone is giving them energy. Thyroid hormone does not give you energy. Ask anybody who is hyperthyroid. They lose their hair. The outside of their eyebrows disappear. They're always jittery, but they're always exhausted. They really can't do much of anything. If they walk for a little while, they get tired. They have to sit down. So it's time for the HRT doctors to stop prescribing thyroid hormone to women who are tired. And if you are prescribing thyroid hormone to a woman who has low energy, she has maybe traditional, what am I looking? What am I trying? If she has a traditional, what's the name of it? I can't think of the name of this. It'll come back to me. If a woman comes to you and says, I'm exhausted all the time, she doesn't necessarily have chronic fatigue syndrome because her thyroid hormone is low. Chronic fatigue is a completely different scenario. If her thyroid hormone is low, don't put her on thyroid hormone. That's not going to make her feel better. And it's not going to make the exhaustion go away. It's only going to make it worse. You know, it baffles me because HRT doctors, the first thing they do to women is they say, oh, your thyroid is low. We're going to give you Armor, or we're going to give you Nature-Throid, or we're going to put you on Synthroid, or we're going to put you on some synthetic variant of thyroid hormone. And the women are on it for a couple months. They don't feel any better, but now they're losing their hair. And then the doctor says, well, we're going to change your thyroid hormone, or we're going to put you on a smaller dose. No, take her off the thyroid hormone. She didn't need it in the first place. Thyroid hormone is a powerful mitochondrial uncoupler. It does not increase energy levels. It will increase body temperature because the mitochondria becomes inefficient, but there are better ways to help thermal regulation of the body. He says, Jeff Clifton says, we need a consistent and reliable way to test iodine levels. I take 325 micrograms a day. According to my Everwell test, I'm right where I need to be. Thyroid numbers aren't great. Neuropaths say I need way more iodine. You know, people in America probably don't get enough iodine in their diet. I agree. But there was a doctor years ago who said, buy iodine and paint it on your skin and let your skin absorb it over the course of days. It'll absorb what it needs. I don't know how true that is. I don't necessarily believe that. But if you're eating shellfish and stuff like that, and you're eating fish that contains some iodine, you should be able to get more than enough in your diet. I don't know. It takes three things to make thyroid hormone: selenium, tyrosine, and iodine. So if you're just supplementing with iodine and you're not getting enough selenium and tyrosine, then you're not going to see any changes in your thyroid status. I'm sorry. Maybe that's what you need to do. You need to start taking, along with your iodine, about 1 gram or 2 of, well, you can eat a couple Brazil nuts a day. You'll get more than enough selenium from a couple Brazil nuts. And then tyrosine, 1 to 2 grams of tyrosine a day, and give it a couple weeks, and you should start to see the iodine actually converting to thyroid hormone. So give that a try. He takes all 3, he said. Yeah. You know, the thyroid is an interesting gland, but taking thyroid hormone should only be done if you absolutely have very low thyroid hormone. And once you start taking it, you don't develop any symptoms. You don't feel crappier. You don't pass out. You don't start losing hair. Any doctor that keeps you on thyroid hormone after you start saying, I feel crappy on it, I'm exhausted all the time, I'm losing my hair. And if he doesn't say, okay, stop the thyroid hormone right away, then I'm sorry, I don't trust that doctor anymore. I'm sorry. So if doctors keep telling people that thyroid hormone gives them energy, it's a lie. It doesn't give you energy. It actually reduces the energetic effect of your body by making it harder for mitochondria to work. And if you're taking thyroid hormone and you're losing hair and your eyebrows are thinning on the edges, they're disappearing if you're a woman, stop the thyroid hormone. Stop it for 2 or 3 weeks. If the hair stops falling out, then you know you discovered what the problem was. But women won't do it because their doctor tells them. Let's see. Jeff Clifton says he's currently taking protomorphogen by standard process called thyrotropin, which is desiccated bovine thyroid. You know, desiccated bovine thyroid should work. It should work. As long as, but here's the problem. I would contact standard process. It's illegal to sell desiccated porcine thyroid unless all the T3 and T4 has been washed out of it. That's the truth. Because otherwise, companies like Armor Thyroid would go out of business if you could buy it as a supplement from standard process. So I'm willing to bet that it's not complete intact porcine thyroid or bovine thyroid. I'm willing to bet that it has been processed in a way to remove the active thyroid hormone from it. I'll bet you on that. You check it out. He said it says thyroxine removed. There you go. That's it. Throw it away. It's not going to do anything for you. All right, so that's it for today. A little rant, and hopefully doctors will pay attention. The thyroid hormone is a mitochondrial uncoupler, and it makes people tired and sluggish. And if it's too high of a dose for them, they will start losing hair. And that's the first tip, that you should take them off of it and find other reasons for their chronic fatigue. It's not the thyroid. All right, we'll see you tomorrow with more Superhuman Radio. Thank you for watching and listening today.